Welcome, symbol lovers, to another edition of Understanding the Symbols of Hieronymus Bosch. And this time around, we're going to decipher this drollery, and we're going to use the 6 keys to understanding the symbols of Hieronymus Bosch. Drolleries are found in illuminated manuscripts. Illuminated manuscripts are the hand-drawn books found in the Middle Ages, and the drolleries refer to the little drawings around the edges, and these are sometimes decorations, but other times they either illustrate what's going on in the text or they are puzzles. And this time around we're going to deal with a puzzle. We'll do a real simple puzzle first. So here we have a drollery of a man. He's bending over backwards, and he's being ridden by a naked woman. Well, to understand this one, we just need to read the Bible, where it says, "An unmarried man is concerned about how he can please the Lord, but a married man is concerned about the affairs of this world and how he can please his wife." So that explains why she's naked around him. She's his wife. And that explains why he's bending over backwards. He's trying to please her. And so that would be the little Bible lesson, the little Bible challenge that you would be expected to do if you were the proud owner of one of these illuminated manuscripts. So they would put in all this oddball stuff in the margins, but they wouldn't necessarily explain what any of it was. You were supposed to be student enough to figure it out for yourself. And frankly, I haven't got the faintest idea what most of this stuff is. I just don't. Some of them I do. You see, hidden away in the scriptoriums and monasteries were heretics. And the heretics were also producing these books. And hidden in the margins are little heretical teachings. This symbol is what I call a heretic door. A heretic door is a symbol made by a heretic for a heretic with the idea of recruiting new heretics. And it is characterized by the fact that you are unlikely to guess it on your own, and it contains a dangerous idea. And so now we're going to suss out the dangerous idea by using our 6 keys. There weren't a ton of these, by the way. I only know of 4 of them, unless you count the works of Hieronymus Bosch, which is pretty much a fountain of heresy once you understand what you're looking at. You can think of the Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch as being one gigantic heretic door, because he uses the symbols in the exact same way. And we're going to be able to read the Bosch symbols as well as these drolleries by using the 6 keys for understanding the symbols of Hieronymus Bosch. And so equipped, we can now begin to peer into the world of heresy. And we're going to use the first one. You don't have to use them in order, but we're going to use the first one. It's exactly what it looks like. So, what does it look like? Well, it looks like an angry fish on a foamy ocean, and it's sort of being ridden by as one would ride a surfboard. There's 2 feet on it, but there's no body connected to the feet. It just goes feet, ankle, wrist, hands. There are 2 identical right hands. And between the 2 hands, there seems to be a little curtain or veil. And so, these are our clues. Because there is no such thing as magic, we know that these hands and feet are not surfing on a fish. We know this is a symbol. We know we have to look elsewhere. So we're going to look, of course, in the Bible, and the first thing we're going to look at is the fish, this prominent image. And whenever you see a fish attached to any of this stuff, this biblical stuff, you always think of Jesus. So what's happening here is primarily deals with Jesus. And one of the reasons we think about Jesus and fish is because he multiplied the loaves and the fishes. And what do we see here? What looks like a turbulent ocean could just as easily be a loaf of bread, which is what it is. This is a loaf and a fish. And when we read the Bible, we'll understand what the hands have to do with the loaves and with the loaf and the fish. So now, because we think like Ebionites, we turn to the Gospels to figure out what's what. And the story of the loaves and fishes is one of the few that's covered in all four Gospels. But we'll use the Gospel of Mark, which reads, "Then Jesus directed them to have the people sit in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, Jesus spoke a blessing and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to set before the people. And there were 5,000 men who had eaten the loaves." And so, the miraculous event of the loaves and fishes, it was done very publicly so that lots of people remember it. And before the crowd, he broke the bread and the fish and made this magical event happen. And for now, we're going to skip the part that it's a magical event and simply take it at face value, that this is what happened according to the Bible. But if the trick was that we guessed that this is about the loaves and the fishes, it wouldn't be much of a trick. But there are 2 identical hands, as well as that little bit of cloth in between them. So how do we explain the 2 hands? Well, it's because there are 2 events in the Bible regarding Jesus and breaking of bread. So now we need to read the other passage. And our second reading comes from the book of Luke, the 24th chapter, which reads, "That same day 2 disciples were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. And as they talked and deliberated, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him." And then as they're talking with Jesus, he says to them, "Then Jesus said, 'O foolish ones, how slow are your hearts to believe that all the things the prophets have spoken? Was it not necessary for the Christ to suffer these things and then enter into his glory?' And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was written in the scriptures about himself." And it continues, "As they approached the village where they were headed, he seemed to be going farther. But they pleaded with him, 'Stay with us, for it is nearly evening and the day is almost over.' So he went in to stay with them. While he was reclining at the table with them, he took bread, spoke a blessing, and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized Jesus, and he disappeared from their sight. Then the 2 told what had happened on the road, and how they had recognized Jesus in the breaking of the bread." Aha! And therein is our lesson. So now we know this drollery is exactly what it looks like. That is, it's describing two separate events in which Jesus broke bread, and his hands, and this is the important part, were identical. Let's look at that scripture one more time. What the passage says is that these two disciples were walking for miles. Jesus joined them and walked with them, but they didn't recognize him. But he spent how much time, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, explaining to them what was written in the scriptures. So he apparently talked for quite some time. It could have been miles, but they didn't recognize him. Not until he took the bread, spoke a blessing, and broke it. Then they recognized him, but then he magically disappeared from their sight. But they told others that they had seen Jesus on the road, and they recognized him, not because of his features, but because the way he broke the bread. So, what's the problem? Well, to figure out the problem, we need to look at that bit of cloth between the two hands, or the two events. What happened? Well, among other things that happened between those two events was recorded in Luke 23. It was now about the 6th hour, and darkness came over all the land until the 9th hour. The sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was torn down the middle. Then Jesus called out in a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And when he had said this, he breathed his last. So the difference between the two events was that curtain that was torn by the death of Jesus. Only the curtain between these two hands is intact. What's missing from the one hand, the hand that broke the bread on that road from to Jerusalem, was nail holes. Jesus had died. That curtain is supposed to have been torn. So where were the holes? Jesus went around after his resurrection showing people his wounds to prove that he had been killed in that crucifixion and that he had risen from the dead. And so, where are the wounds in this account? Why do they magically disappear? What is wrong with either this account or the Bible itself? The function of a heretic door is to lead a person to the truth by first introducing doubt. I should add that this interpretation of this drollery, I believe, is unique to me. As far as I know, no one else has got an interpretation at all for the thing. But if you can find an alternative interpretation, or anyone coming to this conclusion before I did, please let me know. But I believe all the ideas you've heard in this video are original to me. I could go on like this for hours, but I'm sure you're getting a little tired. So we'll make this a two-parter. And in part 2, I'll tie this all into the symbols of Hieronymus Bosch, and we'll also look at a few more drolleries. In the meantime, don't let the Christian clergy make an ass out of you. And if I haven't made myself perfectly clear, go ahead and enter any questions into the comments section. And remember, there are no stupid questions, just stupid questioners. Thanks for sticking all the way to the end, and I mean it, you've earned yourself a donut.